Hello everyone, Jacqueline Jax here. I really enjoyed painting this one. Can I just tell you, I used the Shades of Fall monthly watercolor subscription palette and I was able to make some really cool things. I had this vision for just messing around with the backgrounds with kind of including light. You know what I mean? Where you just kind of are peeking through things and you're seeing a lot of light. And I thought, let's just give this a try and mix some interesting background colors using this palette. So I started with Prickly Pear, which is a highly granulating green that gives you kind of like that beautiful green that nature intended. And I just kind of added water to it, went on dry paper. This is a Fabriano journal. These are available on my website. I make them by hand at jaxwatercolor.com as I do the paint. And I added the yellow. Now, Autumn Glory is such a beautiful, beautiful yellow. It is a warm yellow, but it brings like this vibrancy, right? Like it's not like a dull, warm yellow. It's just this gorgeous golden yellow, but it makes really nice, I would say, nice shades of green when you're adding it to green, right? So you get like those really neat tints, and then you can add a little bit of blue to it and you get even more vibrant shades. So it's really a fun color to play around with. If you guys want a larger amount of Autumn Glory, let me know, because this one is only one that was released, actually Prickly Pear and Autumn Glory, as well as Ruby Slipper and Sapphire. Those ones were in this palette. Jade is also in this palette, but I think I released Jade at one time, but this is exclusive. They're not available in pans. They're not available anywhere. It's just in the monthly subscription. So if there's any colors here that you really got to get your hands on, then message me and I will look and see if I have any pigment left. But in any case, you see what this warm yellow does, right? And I'm mixing in more of the Prickly Pear, but then I'm going into the Jade, which is a gorgeous green as well. And it's just such a blessing to have. If you're a green lover, this is that green that has like a little bit of blue in it, and it just reaches some really nice depth. You can add it into a little bit more blue to turn it that way, or you can mix it with your yellow and just get some just beautiful results. I think that this is one that doesn't rival anything else. It's more of a cobalt green, but at the same time you can see how like subdued it is, but still you can get a little more vibrancy. So I'm just digging my wash brush. This is the red wash brush with the pointed tip. Great brush. Get it in every size while I have them. I'm just dipping this right into the paint at this point, and this is kind of like a damp, right? I only have one side wet, and I only wet it as I go along. I try to keep it kind of wet. Fabriano is pretty good with that. Mixing a little bit of the Ruby Slipper with my mixture, you can see how I'm kind of giving me that like tinge right over on the shadow side. And I'm going to build up color on this side as well, but this is a really nice base. Now, by mixing the things the way I did, where I started with Prickly Pear, I added some Autumn Glory, then I added a little bit of Jade, and then I dipped into the Ruby Slipper, that is going to make this entire piece really cohesive and just give such a beautiful wash. Now what you can do is you can just keep dipping into your palette, adding a little more Jade, adding a little more Autumn Glory, a little more Prickly Pear, and so there it's going to just give you this beautiful range. And then when you want to get that like kind of dark, kind of smokier look, just add a little bit of Ruby Slipper. The Ruby Slipper, it's hard to find really good reds, so I'm really particular about my reds because they can be really difficult to work with. Ruby Slipper is a really luxurious red, I would call it, and it's one of those that like takes you on a journey because it can do so many things. It mixes with yellow to create really vibrant oranges, but as you can see, you can add it to a dirty mix and you don't get dirty paint. You get like a beautiful neutral, almost like a purple neutral, right? but we're leaning it a little more on the green side because I want it to just really float into this painting and become part of a background for drama, right? For a really dramatic foreground of shadow work. So stay tuned because this is going to get even better. But as you can tell, I'm just mixing a little more ruby slipper in, right? And then you just go back to your autumn glory and it goes a little more orange. Then you go back to your prickly pear and it goes a little more neutral. And then your jade. You can literally mix all of my colors together and you still won't get something that you can't paint with. That is great, right? Is because when I make watercolor, I make them with organic handmade binder and just beautifully sourced pure pigment that is just finely milled. I take a lot of time to make these colors. There's no fillers, there's no additives. And I think fillers is one of the reasons why cheap paint just makes mud. It just really is difficult to paint with. I can't even paint with cheap paint anymore because it's so frustrating. But in any case, I don't know. I've always used this kind of paint and I really, really love it. Of course, Fabriano is a dream to paint on. So here's what I'm doing. So here I'm just mixing more of this kind of like a green gray and just making some beautiful hash marks, giving it a lot of fluff, just going through and just amping up the texture on the paper, because remember, this has to settle and become a really cool background. So while this is drying, let's go and jump into the other side of the studio so you can hear what this actually here sounds like when I'm painting. Budgies today saying hi to you guys. How are you? But the real loud little guy over here is Coco. Where are you, Coco? Coco, where are you? What's wrong? What's wrong, Coco? What's wrong, honey? Oh, what's wrong, Coco? You already came out today. You already came out. What's happening? Is Ginger not sharing the food again? What's happening? Tell me all about it. Tell me all about it. And she's got so many complaints. So much to say. I know. The drama. The drama. Look at, she's so happy. She's just eating away. Well, you're a good boy. You're a good boy for being so good to Ginger. Yes, you are. He's like, no, she's eating my stuff. She gets all the good pieces. You do realize that you've got food all over this cage, right? Like it's everywhere. All right. We have another. All right, hang on. I'll be back. All right, what is wrong? What? What is wrong? Sapphire, come here. Sapphire, come here. Sapphire, come here. What are you doing? Hi. What's wrong? What's wrong, Sapphire? Peekaboo. Hi, Sapphire. Peekaboo. 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 Can you say peekaboo? Can you say peekaboo? Peekaboo. Woo! Good boy. Good boy. What's wrong with you today, huh? He was out earlier with Sugar. There's Sugar. And there's Sugar. Hi, Sugar. Hi, Sugar. Hi, Sapphire. Okay, don't eat the phone. Don't eat the phone. We need that. No. You cannot play with the phone. He's so funny. Don't eat the phone. So they were out today, and Sugar went back into the cage, and then she called for him, and like a good little boy, I mean, he's like a good little mate. He went right back into the cage and followed her. Okay, all right, can we be quiet now so I can... And as you can tell, back to painting. That's the reason why I had to do a voiceover, because they were in rare form today. So this is pretty much dry. It's time to take a look at it and think about what we want in the foreground. Now remember, I had mentioned I wanted to do some interesting backgrounds, infusing a lot of light so that we could do almost like a shadow foreground. So I had this idea of birds and trees. Let's give it a try, shall we? So we're gonna put away the wash brush for now, even though it's got a really, really cool point. And we're gonna get something that has a little more of a point, but you know, rather than just a striper brush, which we could use, that's a really good one. But I think I'm going to use that size 12 in the pointed round. We just got these in the store and I love them. They are so great. They really do hold a lot of water and they have a really good fine point. So I can go ahead and lay my trees and my branches in. Another really good one to use is the tapered petal brush. So if you have a heavy hand, I would say the tapered petal brush is a little easier to get the point sharp. This one has a great point and a stiff brush and it holds lots of water. So it depends on your hand. If you can do it all, definitely get this brush because it can do it all, from washes to the fine tips. If you need more than one brush in order to get the job done, then get the tapered watercolor brush in addition to this, so that you have this for washes and then you have the tapered brush to do a lot of those really fine little branch work. So I'm mixing up a blue version of a neutral, and as I just showed you how to get to that neutral, it's kind of that plus some blue. So we're dumping into that sapphire. Sapphire is also the name of the bird that I just introduced you to, but it's a rich blue. This one, it's really cool because it has like the ability to give real mood, right? So I'm using it for the tree branches and just to establish my foreground and make it very shadowy looking, because I want that like moody kind of really beautiful foreground that it just stands out against the gorgeous lights that I've left in the background here. Wasn't that background fun to paint too? I thought it was really fun to paint. This was one of the ones that I would do again because I really like the way it turned out. I know it's going to be a painting that is going to sell and that people are going to really enjoy. In fact, I should put this one up for sale and get it out of the sketchbook because I really love how pretty it is. It just turned out so nice. So I'm just dragging this brush with a very light hand. Now, if your hand shakes, make a fist with your left hand and set the wrist of your right hand on top of the fist. It will help stabilize your hand a little bit. But if you're using a thin enough brush, not this one, but maybe the tapered brush, if your hand shakes a little bit, it actually makes better branches. So don't be afraid to use what you got. All right, so this is me just kind of like holding my hand as steady as I can to do those really, really light little marks. There's several different mixes on my station here. I have some that are lighter than others. So if I go right into the deep well, it'll give me like more of a dark mixture. If I go below it, it's got a little more water in it, so it'll give me a little more light mixture. And don't even be afraid to add some extra blue into your mix every once in a while to give it like a little bit of a tinge of something different, because you don't necessarily need to be boring. You can add a little strike of red to your neutral mix, or you can add a little strike of blue, because all of these colors work so well together. I mean, basically just take a dirty palette from the Shades of Fall subscription and add some blue. You're good. You'll get this. So when I make tree branches, I try not to do them all in the same color. So I just kind of talked about that just a bit. But if you notice, I have several things going on here. I have the darkest version of this, right? A little more wet. I have a lighter version of it, which has a little more water. And then I have a little more blue version, and a little more green version, and a little more red version. Now, as long as we stick with the colors in this palette that have been arranged for you, what is it, like 5 colors, then you're not going to see a breakdown in your drawing. You're going to see a very cohesive look, and you can pretty much use any of the colors to lean it just a little bit in one direction or another. I find that just makes the painting look so good, so easily, without having to make a lot of decisions. So try to narrow down your colors. If you aren't getting the monthly palettes that I send out, and you want to go, out on your own and try and put together these palettes and figure it out, then awesome. Do what you love to do. You know what I mean? And if you're inspired and you have lots of colors, then great. Dig in, pick 5 colors and figure it out. But if you do want to get the monthly subscription, use these just like this to develop your art and develop really nice coordinated pieces that really won't be that contradictory. You know what I'm saying? Sometimes you'll maybe pull the wrong color and it'll just ruin a painting. So I really try to think ahead on these mixes and make sure that they're things that you can not only paint with in groups of 2s or 3s, but also mix them all together and, come up with something really, really special. This to me is one of my favorite paintings so far in the watercolor subscriptions. Which one's your favorite? I'm just curious. So if you notice that when my brush has a little more water in it, it makes a lighter mix. And when it makes a lighter mix, I skip around and I use the light where I think I want it to be lighter. So you want to kind of take advantage of what's on your brush rather than try to do it the other way. I mix my mixture. I use what's on my brush and decide, okay, if the mixture is already pretty dark, I'm going to do the darker. Let's just do the darker branches first. And as I see the mixture changing in real time on my brush, or if I need a little more water, or if I need a little more paint, then I just make those decisions as I go along, kind of skipping around. So that's why it doesn't look like I'm painting everything all at once. I'm kind of just backing off of it and intuitively trying to figure out where I want the darker ones. Now, as a rule, darker is going to feel like it's closer and lighter is going to feel like it's farther away, but bigger is going to feel like it's closer. So you have to kind of just look through and kind of recognize what did what in this painting, So this branch here, this tree trunk, it's lighter. I'm adding darker branches because I'm going to go back and just dump in some more color to it, and then you'll see it kind of like pops more into the foreground, and then the lighter ones disappear a little bit more into the background. And that's why we need more than one shade. We don't want to just do everything in one shade because that's not how light works. And if you walk around and pay really, really close attention to it and you develop an eye for what it looks like, you'll get what I'm saying. So now it's time to finish off our painting and maybe add a few of our little birdies. I'm just kind of going through and just giving these little punches of a little more blue color to my tree trunks. You can do this with green. You can add a little bit of yellow. I just happen to like to just mix in some more color into my mix, and as I go along I just turn it in one direction or another. I guess that's why I make the kind of watercolor that I do that can be mixed together, because I feel like it's just easier to paint with and it goes with my personal artistic flow. Here's another thing you can do with my watercolor is you can fill in backgrounds very easily by layering even after. So we're going to do that in just a second. Right now I'm laying in birds. So for me, if you do like a very light little check mark that kind of has a curve to it, it's going to give you birds in the distance really easily. And you want to do a mix of really, really teeny ones and really like a little bit bigger ones. And don't do them all in the same weight of color. Try to get some that'll look like they're in the distance by making them lighter than the others. Now the ones that are sitting on the branches, so simple. It's like a little, kind of like a bar of soap, and then a little circle on top, and then a tail. I actually had a subscription where we did some really basic bird shapes, and that was really helpful, I think, in getting you guys this far. So when you actually go to do these little birdies, you just want the silhouette. You don't want like detailed birds, just the silhouette. Because remember, the light is what we're focused on here, not the actual foreground. The foreground is more of a shadow that just makes the light even that much brighter because it's reflecting through it. So it's that feeling of transparency, that feeling of mood that we're really going for here. So we don't want to add like details into the birds, like eyes and feathers and things like that. Plus this page is way too small for that. So again, just keep adding your birds, little ones, bigger ones. ones that go literally on a branch. You know, some of them will be sitting on a branch, some of them will be landing on a branch, some will be having a little birdie conversation like my budgies do. Just anything that inspires you. I really like how this is turning out. I still like it. Even looking at it a million times over, it's definitely one of my favorites right now. I love the color mixes. It's a really unusual palette that I sent you. Did you notice that, like, it's really unique, right? It's almost as if they're colors that you wouldn't necessarily know to use often, but at the same time, it could literally be your favorite palette for fall. Because the pumpkin patch palette was kind of hard to beat, right? Like, that was a really good one. But this is almost one of those really highly versatile palettes that has very different and unique greens in it, as well as that beautiful autumn glory. And then ruby slipper and even sapphire, right? Sapphire is a really cool color. It does a lot. So you can see how those tree trunks developed. This was a really light tree trunk that I did that first run of it, just kind of like a very light wash. And then I was able to go back and, as it was drying, add a little swipe of more of a blue tinge of this color and a little green tinge of the color and even a little yellow tinge of the color. And it just kind of gives that texture. Now that in itself, don't overdo it. Don't cover the whole tree trunk with that, those different colors. Just kind of pick a little spot on a couple of trees and do it as if that's where the shadow is. It looks way better than doing it too often, because if you do it too often or on everything, it just kind of takes away from the surprise, so to speak. Takes away from that element of, oh, that's really cool, I like that, and it just becomes something that you don't see anymore because it's just everywhere on the page. So how are you doing making your birdies? I hope you're doing good. Remember, you do not have to make them perfectly. Honestly, if you look closely at my drawing, they are not perfect birdies. They are not even perfect silhouettes, but they're cute and they're fun, and it just really goes with this theme so that it doesn't look like a barren area, right? It kind of gives it a little more friendly nature, a little more playfulness. Animals tend to do that. That's why I love them so much. So now I'm going to lay in those background washes, like I was saying. And this is something I usually do on a painting, is I just take a loose wash brush and I just kind of roll some of the paint very lightly into areas that I feel just need to be textured up a bit. This brush at this point is almost, I would say, mostly not dry, but mostly dry, right? So I'm doing like a lot of dry brushing because there's not enough water. But I'm still kind of diving in there and picking up a lot of paint and just moving it around so that I can get more of that texture. I feel like it really does kind of like polish up the painting and give it just a little more like professional look, so to speak. Something that just looks kind of unique and a little more loose, right? Because it's just got like more texture. But if you notice, it lays it into the background. It did not lay it into the foreground because, one, the paint, and two, mixed with water and the right brush. It did not rub away our foreground at all. All right, so that's our painting. What do you think? Are you going to give it a try? Look at the light. Is that incredible? Did you ever think it was going to dry that bright? It really is beautiful. And then even that right side compared to the left side's so vibrant. The right side is still got a lot of light, but a little bit of that red coming through as it dried. It just looks stunning. Anyway, have a great one, you guys. I hope you enjoy it. If you do give this a try and you want to enter our monthly challenge, just be sure to share it in our group page on social media, which is linked in the video description box below, along with where to get all of the materials that I used in this watercolor challenge. And when you do post, make sure you use the hashtag Jax Art Challenge, and you might win a gift card. All right, guys, have a really, really good time. I know you will. And I will see you again soon.